So our next speaker is Christopher Lee Boon, but don't call him Chris or Christopher. He just goes by Boon. And now Boon was formerly a top sales guy with the Advertising Research Foundation. Some of you may know him from then. But I invited him to come in and talk because I think it is important for us as marketers to get the perspective of the sales side of things. And he's got a lot of opinions. He talks kind of fast.
Yeah.
But I know you can keep up. So with that, Boon.
Cool. Thank you, Dana. All right. So you just took away my whole opening. Christopher Lee Boon, call me Boon. We're all friends now. And I appreciate it, Dana. I do talk fast, so I give you guys all the right. If I start getting ahead of myself, to give me the downward-facing jazz hands, and I'll slow down immediately. All right, so I have about 40 minutes of content to get into about 25 minutes. So let's jump right in. Is it clicker? Up here? I got it. All right, so once upon a time, about 5 weeks ago, nope. There we go. Yep, once upon a time, about 5 weeks ago, my friends from Green Books, Dana and Lucas, called me and said, Boon, we would like you to speak at our next show coming up in September. I said, all right, send me the lineup, send me the content, I'll see what it's all about. And from looking at it, I said, you know, I don't know if I really fit in. This lineup's a lot smarter than I am. I spent the first half of my career working on the marketing side for lifestyle brands. The second half of my career, the last 8 years, working on growth strategy, mainly in the B2B universe, specifically within advertising, insights, and analytics. So I said, I don't know exactly what I'm going to be able to speak to. And they said, the thing we're looking for most is, as you're putting together a growth strategy, which basically is a mix between sales, business development, corporate strategy, and looking at the whole sales and marketing funnel, what is the number one thing you want or need from the marketing side to support overall growth, very much tied to revenue? Especially working with some of the top buyers and clients in the industry. I've worked with over 400, and the real champions of the industry. They've served on board of directors. I've worked right alongside them. Many have become friends. So how do they think? How do they act? How do they find new products? What's the best time to hit them? So that's what we're going to go through today, okay? I have 3 quick chapters. To start off, though, I wanted to get a sense of the room. By a show of hands, how many of you are on the marketing side? Director of Marketing, Social Media, Insights, Analytics, etc. Okay, probably about half the room. How many are on the sales side? Business development, revenue, income? All right, probably about 50, maybe about 20, 25%. Any owners, entrepreneurs, CEOs? All right, a lot, more than I thought. A good 20% of the room. Now, this is a question for everybody. Let's level set. Your annual job performance, your success for your role. How many of you are closely tied to revenue and sales in some way, shape, or form? Let's say 50% or more. Definitely the startup owners, for sure. All the salespeople. Okay. So what I want to walk through in the first chapter is what I call how to become your CEO's favorite. The next chapter is going to show you how to do it in 4 weeks. We're going to talk about performance metrics. In the past, CEOs and owners and investors were only looking at revenue. The problem with that is if your sales are flat or declining, you don't actually know what's going on, how to fix it, or how to scale up. Now, and it's very hard to also quantify and quantify the marketing efforts. When I was at Red Bull and Vitamin Water, we had millions of dollars to spend with Clear Channel and Z100, this stuff. How do you really attribute what's happening with that money? And that was before Facebook. Now with online, offline attribution, it's 10 times harder in some businesses. Now, in today's day and age, we can look much more granularly at this entire sales and marketing funnel. So we've got a typical funnel on the board where you're putting leads in on this end, which all the marketing people know too well. It goes through this Willy Wonka type machine and then comes out as closed sales on the end of the funnel. The thing I find from the last 3 or 4 companies I've looked at deeply in this arena is that this funnel looks more like this. It's more of a martini glass where you're putting a ton of leads in the front end, only a few are getting qualified, and even less are closing. So they're looking to say, where's the break? What's going on? Because we're sponsoring these shows and we have a fishbowl and we're collecting business cards, or we're buying email lists and doing campaigns, but what's actually happening? The CEO is going, where's the money? How come it's not closing, okay? So what I like to do is take a zoom out a little bit and take a look at the funnel. And, oh, sorry, my phone's going off. Take a look at the funnel a little bit and talk about the question Dana and Lucas gave to me, which is, what is the most important thing you ask of the marketing departments in these companies to do? Everyone knows about new leads. Most marketing departments are looking externally. Where do I find new audiences, new buyers to attract them to our website or set up a meeting, whatever. The number one thing I put on every marketing department that I consult with or work for is meeting requests. Driving sales calls, conference calls, RFPs, pitches, lunch and learns, things of that nature. With all the leads you can put in on this end of the funnel, it doesn't do much good if it doesn't lead to an actual meeting or something where we can engage in a conversation. Obviously, following that is going to be meetings. That's going to be the sales side, which is why it's a gray circle. And then we've got qualified leads. Who's being qualified and disqualified? Someone said about 10 minutes ago, make sure you disqualify quickly. I can't agree with that more. I think, Ryan, you said that. Yes. I can't agree with that more, is that if you're paying too much attention and spending too much time on leads that don't matter, you're just wasting your time in your marketing budgets, and everybody's marketing budgets are pretty slim. So make sure you disqualify quickly. And then we go into the rest of the pipeline. Now let's take a zoom out on this. A very simplified pipeline from the entire spectrum when reporting to the CFO or CEO, right? Marketing team's putting new leads in, turns into requests, into meetings, into qualified leads, into opportunities, into sales. Now, the difference I find most between the sales side of a company and the marketing side is sales knows very well they need to generate 50 meetings a month, let's say, to turn into 35 qualified meetings, to turn into 20 opportunities or SOWs, statements of work, to then turn into 12 closed deals. Those 12 closed deals, after 3 months, each one's worth $25,000. That's $300,000. The sales teams know that because they're getting paid on that. That's their quotas. The problem I'm finding is that the marketing teams don't really think about how to fit themselves into this equation. That it may take 3,000 new leads a month to turn into 75 requests, to turn into 50 meetings, and so on and so on. So when the CEO comes and says, we have investors looking at the company, next quarter we need to ramp up sales by 50%, you now know that not 3,000 leads in the funnel, but I got to put 4,500 in. Let me sponsor more conferences, give me a bigger budget, let me buy another list, whatever it may be. And that is the biggest missing link that I see in the companies is meeting requests. And the way that you know it's that important is because I made it blink. So that's what I'm really trying to highlight, is that meeting request is the #1 metric I'm seeing in the companies I'm consulting for and looking at overall. Another thing, on a little bit of a tangent, is that I've worked in companies where I've seen new heads of marketing every year. The marketing departments seem to turn over really quickly. So one of the ways to defend what you're doing on the marketing side, when it's very hard to quantify what you're spending on, is this. If you're driving meeting requests and closings aren't happening, I consulted for a company recently where I showed them this, sales were flat, CEO said, what's going on? Put this together, did analysis for about 3 months, and then figured out it's not the marketing side. 2 of the salespeople were fired. And then actually more budget went to the marketing side, all right? So meeting request is #1 in my opinion. Okay, chapter 2. Success in the first 4 weeks. When Dana Lukash called, they said, we're going to have a lot of insights, startups, mid-sized, small-sized businesses, and a lot of people on the marketing side and wondering how to really get it off the ground. And again, in our universe, I see marketing people turn over very, very quickly. Even CMOs have a 2-3 year lifespan in many companies, right? The 4 things I want to focus on for the next 5 minutes are, #1, your ICP or audience. Is anybody familiar with the term ICP? No? Okay. So ICP is a new term coming out of the business development and sales development world. It stands for Ideal Customer Profile. It's been alluded to here before. You all know target demographics or target demo, target audience, 18 to 34-year-old males making $120,000, blah, blah, blah. That's great for when I was at Red Bull, but in the B2B sales side, ICP is the new term that everybody seems to be adopting very quickly at places like Dreamforce and whatnot, where it's the characteristics and behaviors of your buyer. Who is your buyer? The head of research at ESPN, Artie Bolgren, versus the head of digital consumer insights at Viacom, whatever it may be. Who is your ICP, okay? That's the most important thing, and one of the things I find marketing really misses the mark on. They just do a spray and pray and hope they find some clients in it, okay? So figure out your ICP. I'll show you how in a second. #2, what is the #1 thing you're going to say to them if you have 10 seconds or less? #3, what is the full elevator pitch if they invite you onto the elevator and you have 2 minutes or so? No one's giving me the jazz hands yet. I'm surprised. I feel like I'm going really fast. And then last is how to measure, track, and scale, which is big. A lot of marketing departments aren't thinking about that, but you really, really need to. All right. So let's pretend this makes up your ICP, your type of ideal customer buyer profile, okay? Now, it may be these people. Many of you may know these people. Where is Tina? Tina knows these people all too well. She actually works with Jeff and Edwin with Artie. But whether it's these people or the people that report to them, whatever, for this exercise, we're going to pretend like this is your ICP. Last year, how many of you guys were here last year for the show? By show of hands. I hope you were here last year. All right, so about maybe 10% of the room. Last year at the buyer panel that we had before lunch, at last year's, the most popular question from watching the videos were, how do I get in touch with you? How do I cut through the clutter and get a conversation going? What's the best methodology and whatnot beyond what we spoke about today? Everyone knows thought leadership, getting on stages is great, but if you're only going to get on 2 or 3 stages a year, it's hard to tell your investors you're waiting till October for that show and all your sales are going to start driving in, okay? So what do you do on a day-to-day basis? Neil Marcus from MetLife said, email is the best way to get in touch with me. Followed by Mike from HBO, who said, email is best because it controls me on the receiving end and controls you on the messaging end. Flora from ESPN, who probably works with Edwin, said, email is very effective, as is referrals. And Frank from Mondelez said, I get all my advice and new mentors from referrals. 70% of B2B decisions happen through referrals. I don't have the time today to go into how to build a referral program. That's a whole nother session. And it also is based on you having a strong client base And some of you guys may be brand new, maybe just filed LLC, you don't have that yet. So I'm going to focus on emails, since 3 out of 4 said emails, and how to get in touch with them. All right, I'm going to start off with what's called a sales stack, again, coming from the same universe that came up with ICP. In our sales stack, I'm going to use a metaphor to explain these platforms, these automation platforms. I'm sure you're all familiar with Marketo and HubSpot, InsideView, and the others. For this, which is coming from the sales development side, I'm going to use the metaphor of, let's say, a fishing operation with boats, catch fish, top off their heads, freeze them, pack them, and take them to the different farmers markets around town, okay? In that metaphor, LinkedIn is the ocean. It is the B2B ocean. We all know that in the same way that Facebook is B2C. LinkedIn is the ocean where we're going to find all the fish. The fishing pole that's going to pull the fish out of the water is something, a data scraper like SalesLoft. There are others in the market. Capture actually happens to be the competitor for SalesLoft. I actually think they're better. I told them to come here today. They're better. They're a little bit harder to use, but in a few months I think they're going to kill SalesLoft. And then you take them in the boat, go back to your warehouse, which is your CRM, where your trucks are there, your back office is there, your boats are coming in with the fish, your packing operation is your CRM, followed by outreach, which is the most brilliant piece of technology I've seen in the B2B universe in the last 5 years, okay? And that's going to be, in the metaphor, your trucks taking the fish to the different farmers markets around town. Now I'm going to walk through how we would do this if I were to come into your company for the first 4 weeks. All right, first off, as I mentioned, the ocean is LinkedIn. The premium package for this type of process is Sales Navigator. I'm sure everyone, or many of you, are very familiar with the $30 a month, whatever it is, to find a new job when you're searching for keywords by salary and things like that. This is about $90 a month per salesperson, and it's how to find the right customers, how to find new prospects, rather than buying email lists and doing whatever you may do. It gives you about 25 different filters, including keywords, geography, size of company, and everything. The ones that I focus on the most are these, okay? I'm not going to walk through all these because you don't have the time, but if you can always email me and I'll send it over to you. But I did a search to find people, like the pictures I showed a minute ago, and found 29,000 in the US, 6,000 in New York based on this search on LinkedIn, okay? In blue, blue and red that's a Boolean search. If you're not familiar with the Boolean search, go on Google or YouTube and you can see how it works. It's using ands and ors and things like that. And I highlighted in blue the words I want these people to have. In red, I do not want them to be in the HR department, the legal department, retired, any of that kind of stuff. The only other thing I want to highlight is years of experience. A lot of people get caught up and immediately go to seniority. I want VP and up. The problem is LinkedIn calls things differently versus whatever company calls them versus what you call them. So it's completely going to throw you off. So do not use seniority. Years of experience, I find when you use 10 years or more, you get a buyer, a decision maker, or what I call the actuaries. Different from the way Tina's World uses the word actuary, but actuaries are the 6 to 10 year person, approaching 30, maybe right after 30, who have the ear of the buyer. They recommend on hirings, investments, things like that, and they're really in touch with the team, okay? They're not having to go to the board meetings and things. They're a little bit more in the day-to-day. For this exercise, I did US, those words, 10 years or more. We got 29,000, starting with our friend Rada from Clear Channel, who I know many of you know, followed by Christy from Disney, followed by Peter from Havas Media. And if you can see their profiles a little bit, you can see these are probably the types of buyers we're going after. A lot of the room in here are, okay? So taking that in, then I need to take out my fishing pole and get them in the boat. And that's where these data scrapers like SalesLoft or Capture come into play. You see Rada, Christy, Peter. It pulls in their title and whatnot. It pulls into their company information, and it fills in the blanks with their emails, their phone numbers, and things like that. So now you can actually build your own targeted lists and not just buy the list off the last conference you went to or whatever it may be. Once you get them in the boat, you got to take them back to land, and there we go. Put it in your CRM. I'm not going to spend time on this today. The only thing I will say is half the companies I've worked with or consulted with, half have a CRM and half do not. The ones that do not always have the same excuse. We have a database. A database is not the same thing as a CRM, okay? A CRM is a real hub. It's the point where everything works from. If you don't have a CRM, look into it. It's not as expensive as you think. But somebody said earlier, garbage in, garbage out. That's absolutely true. I am a sales ops expert, and I watch every piece of data that goes through in the beginning to make sure it's online. I show it to the CEO and build dashboards that I could show you another time to make sure so the CEO can also see it. So then he can yell at people or congratulate people, whatever it may be. But making sure the data is good is key. All right. Last but not least, the most brilliant piece of technology I've seen in the last 5 years, including my iPhone. Outreach. Some of you may be familiar with Yesware. It's very popular. Yesware is for freshmen. ToutApp is also very popular for sophomores. This is for the varsity team. All right. This is the stick shift Ferrari. It's brilliant. Basically, within Outreach, you can run different content drip campaigns, track all the activity immediately, and sync immediately with your CRM. For the marketing side, I'm actually seeing this taking over marketing budgets recently. Because within 4 weeks, you can run people through it and figure out your best subject lines, those blue dots on the top right. You can figure out the number one thing to say to people by testing subject lines. What's your best elevator pitch by testing email bodies. I consulted for a company recently that marketing was a mess. They had to run an A through M test for messaging. I mean, if you're really that far off, we have a problem. But within 4 weeks, instead of going to marketing meetings and people saying, I think we should say this, I think we should say that, you actually have data to say what you should say. All right? So immediately, marketing budget's pulled away, and it goes over to this, and we expand this type of platform for everybody. So this is an absolutely brilliant campaign. Another little thing you should write down is called a 5x5 rule. Same thing with that ICP and whatnot. 5x5 is hitting them with 5 pieces of content over 5 weeks. Okay? It may be email, it may be surrounding them with social proof, taking case studies and whatnot, but a 5x5 is the way, and you guys have the numbers on this. Where's Theron? There you go. So Theron, my friend over there, actually works for this company. He can tell you all about this and give you trials and stuff, but the data shows that if you hit them with 5 pieces of content over 5 weeks, your chances of getting a meeting go up like 30 or 40%. Don't quote me on that percentage, but it's high. All right. Also, you can identify your audience, which is the #1 mistake I find marketing teams make. They do a spray and pray, big blast, but they don't actually know who they're going for. So you can optimize by setting different people, different messaging, and figure out what's going on. If you were to start off with something like this, again, first 4 weeks, how would you want to start it off? What kind of benchmark should we use? All right. For the outbound content side, I would suggest starting off with about 1,500 emails over the first 4 weeks to really test your market and know right away who should we be going after. So in month number 2, we can optimize and really develop our decks and everything else. First, let's say 100 in week 1, 200 week 2, 400 in week 3, followed by 800. Now, what kind of return rates should you expect? I use a 30-30 rule. Okay? A 30-30 rule basically says you need at least 30% of your emails to be opened. That means your subject line and the first thing you say is right on. If you're lower than that, you need to change it and figure out what's the best thing you should be saying. What's the best pickup line you have, let's call it. Followed by that, if you have 450 opens, that's 30% of 1,500, you want at least 30% of those opens to reply to you. It could be, this is great, this is not for me, you should talk to my buddy in this department, which is great because now you find out who your ideal customer profile is. Or let's send me more information. You get a lot of those. Send me more information, and if it's good, we'll set up a meeting. So a 30% opens, 30% of those opens you want to be replies in some way, shape, or form. Even the negative ones, because it means they read your body, and it's starting to help you identify where to go, what to say, etc. Now, the #1 thing marketing teams need to do, in my opinion, generate meeting requests. So what should you expect if you were to run an operation like this in your first 4 weeks? In the beginning, you'll get about a 100-to-1 ratio, maybe 150-to-1. So you do 4 weeks of this, you'll get about a dozen meetings set up next month for your sales team. Now, if you were to sponsor a conference and get 12 sales meetings set up next month with qualified buyers, that's pretty good. So that's where you're starting from. Where you want to get to is after 3 to 4 months, get it down to 30-to-1. That's the sweet spot. I designed, for my most recent company, designed this in February with their CRM, did a soft launch in April, did a hard launch in June. By July, every sales and marketing person wanted to get on that, and by the end of August, we were down to 37-to-1. So very quickly, during the summer, when everyone's away with their families, we still were able to figure out where to go, what to do, and when you get down to 30-to-1, let's say it's now January, you put 1,500 prospects in, you're generating 50 new meeting requests. And that is the #1 thing. Your sales team will come back to you and say whether they're qualified or not, whether there's a good fit. You can optimize, but that's pretty much how to ramp up very quickly, especially in the startup universe. All right, that's the close of this chapter. As we close it out, I have 2 more slides, but I want to have a little fun with the room, and let's play a little game. I am going to give you 2 companies. Company A, give you some data. Company B, and give you some data. And I want everyone to vote on who would you like to go after first, okay? Company A, General Electric. 2015 estimated revenue about $150 billion according to MarketWatch. Their fiscal ends at the end of December, so that's an estimation. 2015 estimated ad spend about $2 billion according to Redbooks. 2014 measured media spend about $250 million according to Kantar. And US marketing research personnel about 1,100. All right, that's Company A. Company B, Microsoft. About $93 billion. Their fiscal ended in June, so we know that's a hard number. They have a 2015 estimated ad spend about $2.3 billion on Redbooks, almost $750 million on Kantar for measured media spend, and about 2,500 US marketing research personnel. By a show of hands, who would prefer to go after General Electric? All right, so we got about 3. Who would prefer to go after Microsoft? I'm guessing a lot of hands go. All right, so for everybody who says B, give me a reason why. I'm not going to call you individually, just yell out why. I'm sure you found it. More people to speak to? Which is a great determinant. The size of a marketing research department is a great to figure out who to market to. How much skin in the game, how much they're spending in advertising is a great determiner. I've used that in this whole industry many times over. The correct answer is actually A. And the reason why is 72% of the 400 largest buyers are on a calendar fiscal. It's January to December. So which means that right now is, This slide got a little messed up, but right now, from basically September to about November is planning season. So they're all creating their plans for next year, who they're going to onboard, what they're going to buy, how many new headcount they need, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then once they're finished with their planning, which you really want to get in on, all right, then you're at the top of the totem pole, and I'll tell you why in a second. Then they're going to go into budgeting. They take their money and their budgets for this. They're going to go to their CFO, their CMO, whatever it may be, and say, what do I get approved? I'm asking for $2 million. You got 1.8. And that's when the approvals start coming in. Around Thanksgiving, Christmas, into January, you'll start getting the approvals on the plans, and that's when we're getting calls like, hey, Boon, you're in. Get me a contract, and we'll roll this out January 1st, okay? Another reason why Q4, especially starting right now, is the most important for marketing to this crowd is because there's a lot of money left over at the end of the year, which I'm sure we're all aware of. Now, that's a double-edged sword. It's great to get the money, but when you're a December contract, they found $50,000 in December and you're getting that, you're the first to get cut when there are cutbacks in budget. So my recommendation is start a January contract, take the money in December, but then you go to the top of the totem pole in terms of where the priorities are when there are cutbacks, okay? So budgeting in this, timing is everything in life, but budgeting in this industry is everything. And I worked on the marketing side, sales side, but it's amazing how many January is the #1 month to get contracts and sales in. I've worked at companies that by the end of January, we had half our revenue for the year, and we could forecast the end of December, the whole year, within 10% margin. That's kind of crazy to be able to do that by February, you know, but that's the way the industry runs. December is the second most important month for the year for sales. And why do you have to finish by the end of February, Boon? Why about the other 5 months of the year? Super Bowl happens, and the whole advertising media universe is paying attention to the Super Bowl. Worse than that, well, not worse than that, but after that, upfronts and new fronts. And it's very hard to get a meeting during upfronts and new fronts time period, especially with anyone in the media universe like Viacom, ESPN, and so on. And then you go into the summer, kids get out of school, families go on vacation, and now it's August and we're doing this whole thing all over again. So now is prime time. If you happen to work at a company that puts out thought leadership events and things of that nature, now is the time, today is the time to get out there and get on stages. Okay? All right, so do we have a minute for Q&A? How are we doing on time? Good? All right, great. So quick little background. When I used to speak on stages at the advertising research shows, I'd have 2,000 senior insights professionals, and I was by far the dumbest person in the room. And I'd be in front of them, and I'd be sweating backstage. So I used to cheat and bring some industry experts backstage, and I would say, all right, go out there, sit wherever you sit, wave at me, because if I get stuck, I'm going to need to call on you. Somebody asked me about online, offline attribution. I have no idea what's going on. I'm going to call on you. Luckily, I have one of those people in the room today, Peter Orban, who's standing in the back, because he's up here next. So Peter, like old times, I may need you to bail me out a little bit. And Peter's up here next, so that's great. All right, Q&A. Anybody have anything you want to hit me up with? All right. Looks all right. Oh, I should make some... Oh, yeah? Ryan? Awesome job. I can't wait to see the deck. Yeah, happy to send it to everybody. Email me. I'll send you the deck. Or you can always hit me on LinkedIn, you know. And also, my friend Chris over here from Capture can tell you all about how the data scraping works. Amazing for building marketing lists. And then Theron, again, for outreach, which is the Ferrari of drip campaigns from what we've seen, okay? You can always find me on LinkedIn. Very easy. I'm on it pretty much every day. And, yeah, good to go. Thank you. All right.